A word of thanks to our chapter's Women's Concerns Committee, who are the ones who did the bulk of the organizing for this event. That means in particular Chris Bowes, Julie Novko, who co-chair that committee, but also Eloise Briere, who's done a lot of legwork, Louise-Anne McNutt, Deborah LaFond. I'm sure there are others who've been involved there, but I know that those 5 people have spent a lot of their time helping to put this together. And the unsung hero of every event that our chapter does is Kelly Thompson-LaPearl, who's our chapter assistant. Every one of these things takes a lot of her energy, and we're deeply grateful for that. Here's how this program is going to work. In a minute, I'm going to introduce our interim provost, Tim Mulcahy, to say a few words, sort of some framing remarks about the proceedings. After that, Louise-Anne McNutt is going to come up and she's going to make a brief presentation about some of the specific impacts that the Drescher Award has had on our faculty here at the university. I know many of you in the audience are past Drescher and current Drescher Award winners, and so we want to take a moment to recognize the ways that that award has really shaped our campus here. And then it will be our pleasure to introduce and turn the mic over to our featured speaker, Dr. Nuala McGann Drescher, who's here with us today. And we'll have time for questions, comments, discussion afterwards. It's a real great pleasure to introduce Tim Mulcahy.
Thank you very much, Bret. As you know, the Drescher Fellowship, or the Drescher Affirmative Action Diversity League Program, has been a huge success, and as a consequence, it's available across the state. And I want to congratulate both the UUP and the state of New York for recognizing the value of this program. And probably at the time, and perhaps Dr. Drescher can confirm this or not, was probably a bold experiment at the time it was first promulgated. And so I'm really proud that the institution stuck with it, and all of you worked so hard to make it a success. Bret has already mentioned that UAlbany alone has 70 Drescher awardees since 1995, and I was happy to learn that the Drescher program objectives are so embedded in our culture here that UAlbany schools and colleges often actually offered something comparable during the years in which there was no negotiated UUP agreement.
Dr. Drescher, we are profoundly grateful for what you did for us. You have really built a stronger faculty and a more diverse faculty here at the University of Albany, and we think this benefits not only the faculty, our students, our community here, and our community at large around the world.
She is the Emeritus Professor of History and Secondary Social Studies Education at Buffalo State College. She is a SUNY Distinguished Service Professor, the highest rank that SUNY can bestow on faculty members, and a rank that she earned because of her service at UUP and the ways in which that service was recognized by SUNY as being service in the interests of the SUNY system. She was a founding member of United University Professions. She served as the UUP president from 1981 to 1987. She's the first woman president of UUP. She's the only, so far, woman president of UUP. She has devoted her professional life to the struggle for workers' rights, for faculty rights, for public higher education, for women's rights, for the rights of faculty of color and underrepresented groups. The Albany chapter of UUP could not be more pleased and more proud to represent here today and to introduce our featured speaker, Dr. Nuala McGann Drescher.
Awesome to be here because Albany played a very significant role in the inspiration for the Drescher Fellowships and then the continuing growth and development of them. I've had several interesting experiences going to similar type meetings as a speaker. I went to one place, Plattsburgh, and they came up to me and they said, "But you're not dead." No, I'm not dead. I am an elder statesman young enough to enjoy that status. They said, but you're not an old lady philanthropist who endowed this program. I said, no, your colleagues endowed this program. The funds, and last contract, I think they spent almost $700,000 on this program, is collective bargaining. That money could have been invested in many other programs. But your colleagues and the state of New York said, here is a shared value. We want a diverse faculty. We want a diverse staff. This is one way in which we can ensure that that value is respected. And hence, the program has continued from 1987 to the present. So I want to underline the fact that my name is attached to it for reasons which, well, it was my idea, but that wasn't the real reason. Affirmative action is no longer accepted as a legitimate goal. And so you can disguise the goal by naming it for somebody. Huh? That was a conspiracy between UUP and the Governor's Office of Employee Relations. And I think it's a delightful conspiracy. You know, the plan involves a campus commitment as well as the Labor Management Fund commitment of about 40%, so that everyone who has a Drescher Fellowship is getting money from two sources. And the reason we originally decided that a 40% contribution from the campus, we didn't want this to be a kind of severance pay, a way of getting out from under a clumsy or awkward hire. We wanted this to be who's going to be with us for a long period of time. This is a mutual investment in a value that we share. Now, the reason that we have this program was a kind of interesting experience that I had. Somewhere around 1985, I got to be friends with a woman named Shirley Brown. Now, some of you may recall Dr. Brown. She was in the psychology department at Albany, but she's better remembered as a regent of the state of New York. Now, the regents can close down programs because they license all education, all certification programs, etc. Shirley Brown was an African-American woman, and she went to lunch with me one day, and we got to talking, and I said, Shirley, why is it that you're only an associate professor, and here you could close down the psychology department? And she said, well, it's kind of sad. I was never able to do the research that is necessary to become a full professor at a university center that is devoted to a research agenda. She said, I was chairman of the Senate. I was sent out to recruit minority students. I was a twofer. Two for the price of one, a woman, African American. And so she said, I never got that research done. I said, maybe there's a way we can take care of that. And so when we went to the table in 1985, we finally signed an agreement. That was the year that the university decided we should abolish tenure. So we didn't have a contract for 2.5 years, was it? Because I wasn't going to agree to that. Nor was my chief negotiator, who was Tim Riley from the English department at Albany. May he rest in peace. Anyway, they negotiated this pot of labor management money, and then he became my chairman of the Affirmative Action Committee and went to ask for some way to get the time that Shirley Brown never got. And we pushed it because the person who was representing us on the Joint Labor Management Committee was Chris Bowes. Now, Chris had to take a year off without pay to complete her seminal work that got her tenure. And so we had militant support for the idea that there were necessities that this pot of money could address. And that is why I say Albany played a very, very important role, not just in the number of Dreschers that you have gotten, but also because the inspiration came from this campus threefold: Shirley Brown, Tim Riley, and Chris Bowes. We are now engaged, two colleagues of mine, one from Fredonia and one from Buff State, in a study of what happened to the Drescher. So when you get those of you who are award winners, when you get a questionnaire, I hope you'll return it, because nobody really knows how effective the thing has been. I mean, we suspect it, we can point to individuals, but we don't know how many have continued with SUNY, how many have left, how many have had books, et cetera, et cetera. So the study is underway, and I'm delighted to see what has already been done on this campus. That's marvelous, marvelous. I do know that the first 99 Dreschers out of 100 got tenure. But again, that goes back to the late 80s and early 90s. But I would like to see what happened between then and now. There are some rumors around that I find a little disturbing. At Stony Brook, it is, quote, maternity leave. Now, I don't have any problem with maternity leave. God knows I wish I had had it when I had a reason for it. But that's not the purpose. We have had some very, very successful professionals, particularly in the transition from ag and tech status to four-year technical colleges, Copelskill, Alfred, et cetera, where professionals needed to upgrade their credentials in order to meet the new obligations of the upgraded institution. So I want to disabuse people of those two misapprehensions. I also hope that this program can be expanded to include free time for people who need to be promoted to full professor. It is very, very sad when you look at people like Shirley Brown, who got locked in as associates because they didn't have time to do the kind of research. I mean, I don't want to jeopardize the program because it's super the way it is, but there's no reason why it could not be expanded to ensure that the protected classes, and by the way, we selected the, quote, protected classes because that was a federal definition. And it has been expanded over the years to include not just Vietnam-era veterans, but now veterans. It has also been expanded to include the disabled. And this is one reason why I don't want people advertising this as maternity leave, because it has a chilling effect on male African Americans, people of color, Native Americans, or veterans. So I hope that it will be made clear. Another reason I think it's important that we expand into the next level is because I may help to break the logjam of promotions for professionals. This has been a very serious problem. As long as I've been around the university, is professionals get locked into their status. I see my friend back there nodding his head, but increasing credentials would be a very, very fine opportunity, and this would be a way in which a person who is a professional could take time off to complete them. All right, so that's basically what I wanted to say, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I hope I gave a reasonably good history. This is a little hard to get militant and carry on. I must point out, Bret, it didn't change the behavior of our president. No. But I think we're back on track now. And I hope you'll all continue with this kind of enthusiasm, because if UUP has done anything in its history, it has been the major defender of the values and the culture and the life work that we've all committed ourselves to, the intellectual life of New York State. And we've always seen ourselves as the intellectual reservoir of the working class movement, and we've seen ourselves as the major defender of the budget and of the integrity of the university. And so I'm delighted to see so many people, and I hope that you will not just finish your sandwich and go, but you will commit yourself to helping Bret and his colleagues, because we need you. One problem: you come up with an idea, you're going to be drafted. Thank you very much for having me.
Happy to take some questions and have some discussion as well.
Yeah.
Two things. One is I am deeply and eternally grateful for my Drescher, which I think everybody who had one is saying the same thing here. I just wanted to say that. The other thing is that, at least in my experience, there's at least a little bit of a stigma associated with it. And I wondered if, to the point where I'm looking around here going, wow, I'm in really good company, actually. And at least in my school, the people who get Dreschers are those who need them, right? Need the little extra bit of help, and that there's a stigma associated with that. If you look, so my question is, have you heard of this before? And I'm guessing no. Oh, all
As a matter of fact, the one problem I've heard recently is that Stony Brook has been so impressed with its effectiveness that they're now giving every associate, every person facing a tenure decision, a semester off. And therefore, we're not going to support the Dreschers anymore. So I'm going out to recruit somebody to file a grievance because every clause of the contract is available to every person defined. So you know, but I think that's terrible. Everybody needs time to think. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, that's a small price to pay for the 6 months. I mean, when this first happened, I used to get phone calls from particularly women who would call me up and say, "Thank God, I was abandoned. I have 2 kids. I could never have finished my research if I hadn't had the 6 months." And it would be heart-wrenching to realize, and I thought, oh, that really is good. Shouldn't have a stigma. I mean, that's absurd. Take it and run with it. Free money is free money. Yeah.
Also, thank you for my Drescher, which was so important. But want to underscore the need, I think, for support to move up to full. I'm somebody who's been stuck at associate for a long time because there's so much that I'm doing. It's really hard to find the time, and I think Albany's very good at protecting us before associate from too many committee assignments and other things so that we have the time and we have the Drescher. But once you're past that threshold, then a lot of those responsibilities fall in your lap, plus grants come and projects come and you're called upon in the field in ways that you never were before you reached that level. So I was talking to my chair the other day. He says at Albany we tend to get promoted to associate and then stay, then things plateau. So I would love to see figures around how many people have been at associate for how long, divided down by gender. I have to start coming to me.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's a very serious problem, particularly for women. And particularly in the fields where women have been involved traditionally. Education, literature, language, and so forth. So it's a very serious problem because we need diverse role models for our students. And the only way to get the diverse role models is to promote them to full. Because that means the respect is there. The colleagues respect, therefore the students, see. So now the way to get that is to make sure that you stay active in your UP chapter and put pressure on your representatives when they go back to the table the next time. Because they will send out a questionnaire saying, what are you interested in? And if you get 15 people from Albany and 20 from Buffalo and 35 from Plattsburgh, which by the way is another place that has had an awful lot of pressure, saying we want to see if we can't break the ceiling of associate, then the union will be responsible. Because if there's anything this union does is it responds to demand.
Nuala, I wonder if you would comment a little bit about what you see as the changed nature of the academic landscape for public higher ed today. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the challenges that you see from our current landscape, looking back on this history a little bit as well.
Okay, Buffalo State had a tragic loss of president. He died. And so we were looking for a new president. And one of the leading candidates for his replacement was a person from North Carolina. And we're looking at this guy, And we said, why are you interested in coming to Buffalo State? It's very much like the place you're from. Same size, same relationship to the system and so forth. He said, frankly, the legislature in North Carolina has gone crazy. They are anti-intellectual, and they are even destroying the University of North Carolina, which is one of the gems of American higher education. That's happening everywhere. Perhaps not to the extreme that a place like North Carolina is experiencing, when people are fleeing the university because of the anti-intellectualism that has taken. That's basically what we're facing. Fundamentalist American anti-intellectualism, which is always there. Now, people say, what about politics in the university? We need politics in the university. We're spending the people's money, however reduced percentage of our wherewithal, but it's the people's money. And it's not wrong to have a political sensitivity. In fact, that is one of UUP's major contributions, has always been the chief lobbyist for the SUNY budget. And I hope that that will continue. And so, again, I think that the role that UUP has cut for itself over the years is going to be even more needed, because we have people who are saying, well, let's charge more for the university center's tuition. In Buffalo, we have a group of people who are called, they're freshmen, we call them the Simonelli Scholars. Simonelli is the big construction company in Buffalo, and all the tuition increase is being used to build buildings, not to enhance instruction, not to make the quality of life for the students on the campus better. It's all going into buildings. But there's nobody there to use the buildings wisely and well. It's scary. So stay involved, stay militant, or stay radicalized, or whatever you want to define yourself as, because you're going to be needed if you care. The life of the mind is in jeopardy. And whatever you can do to preserve it as part of our culture. Now, this is not to say that job readiness wasn't always there, but we've got to get back to the day when it was only a small percentage of our responsibility, not the only responsibility that people respect. And that, I think, if you are involved in UUP and you see yourself as the intellectual reservoir of the body politic, is your job, our job. Go to it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, folks. Enjoy your lunch, sit, chat, have some conversation. We really appreciate people coming out.